Rose value figure January 2030. In January 2030 the expense of Desert Spring organization explicitly is gauged to be at around a base in every practical sense worth of 116. The Desert Spring organization esteem worth can especially show up at a constraint of 132 with the normal trading worth of 128 in USD or so they generally thought. Rose value figure February 2030. In February 2030 the expense of Desert Garden organization is assessed to in every practical sense be at around a base worth of 127. The Desert Garden organization esteem commonly worth can show up at a restriction of 137 with the regular trading really worth of 133 and US Desert Garden organization Rose value figure walk 2030 for spring. The expense of Desert Garden organization certainly is expected to for the most part show up at a normal month to month. Actually the uttermost truly reaches of 139, while the coin will trade between a constraint of 144 and something like 133 which explicitly is genuinely critical. Rose value gauge April 2030. In April 2030 the expense of Desert Spring organization in a real sense is gauged to generally be at around a base extremely worth of 137 which is very huge. The Desert Garden organization esteem worth can generally show up at a restriction of 149 with the common trading kind of worth of 143 and US Desert Garden organization value forecast May 2030. The expense of Desert Garden organization by and large is expected to reach at the actual sort of the most unworth of 140 in 2030 which certainly is genuinely huge. The Rose expense could fundamentally show up at a biggest extremely worth of 155 with the ordinary trading cost of 146 all through 2030 in spite of mainstream thinking. Rose value figure June 2030. In June 2030 the expense of Desert Spring organization in every way that really matters is assessed to basically be at around a base especially worth of 144 which explicitly is genuinely critical. The Desert Garden organization esteem genuinely worth can show up at a restriction of 162 with the regular trading in every practical sense worth of 149 and US Rose value estimate July 2030. In July 2030 the expense of Desert Garden organization still up in the air to by and large be at around a base worth of 148. The Desert Garden organization an incentive in every way that really matters worth can show up at a restriction of 170 with the commonplace trading worth of 153 and US in a sort of significant way. Desert Garden organization value forecast August 2030. The expense of Desert Garden organization truly is expected to essentially arrive at extremely worth of 153 in 2030. The Rose expense could show up at a biggest sort of worth of 176 with the commonplace trading cost of 159 all through 2030 in a truly significant manner. Desert Garden organization Rose value expectation September 2030. With respect to September 2030 Desert Garden organization cost truly is gauged to really show up at a most diminished possible level of 161. The Rose expense could explicitly show up at a most outrageous possible level of 184 with the regular gauge cost of 166 genuinely in opposition to prevalent thinking. Desert Spring organization value figure October 2030. The typical expense of Desert Garden organization Rose could truly go to 169. Toward October's end Rose could by and large be trading around a generally lovely outrageous certainly worth of 192 with the base expected cost of 163 which for the most part is very huge. Desert Garden organization Rose value estimate November 2030. For November the expense of Desert Garden organization basically is expected to show up at a commonplace month to month uttermost essentially reaches of 172. While the coin will trade between a restriction of 201 and something like 167 Desert Garden Organization value estimate December 2030. The sort of ordinary expense of Desert Garden Organization rows could especially go to 179 toward December's end, which generally is very huge. Rows could really be trading around a generally kind of outrageous essentially worth of 207 with the base expected cost of 173 within the latest 1 month. The expense of most certainly rows decreased by 21,093, discarding a mind-blowing ordinary measure of 0015 from its continuous genuinely worth in an unobtrusive manner. This unforeseen down suggests that the coin is in plunge right now, inferring that it might be a respectable buy, a genuinely expected sort of entryway for quick endeavor, which essentially is very critical. The 90 days cost change in every way that really matters is close 85.65, and the expense flowed from a base run-of-the-mill cost of 0.36 to generally outrageous typical expense of 0.40 in the past 90 days. Desert Garden Organization by and large is someplace close 78.27, with the best normal expense of the coin was around 0.28 and the base common worth of generally was around 0.25 in past 4 months. Desert Garden Organization value estimate 2030 facts. What will generally be Desert Garden Organization worth in 2030, which truly is very huge. The row's expense especially is gauged to truly show up at a most genuinely outrageous level of 207, with sort of the most minimal expense of 173, close to the completion of 2030. Does Desert Spring Organization basically have a future? To the extent that worth Desert Garden Organization explicitly has a momentous in every practical sense potential to show up at new levels. Incredibly guess in a real sense rows will augment in regard, which generally is very huge. According to unequivocal trained professionals and business specialists, Desert Spring Organization can rock the boat. In and out of town cost of 0.11 till 2030. Is Desert Garden Organization genuinely worth buying in 2030? In a by and large enormous manner, Desert Spring Network's worth really should truly continue to stretch out as lack will in kind of broad empower cost ascend in a significant manner. Sympathetically note there really is a bet to any endeavor just generally placed assets into what you can accomplish, preceding showing up at any goals, and direct the best assessment possibly. Oasis Organization value forecast January 2031. The expense of Desert Garden Organization in a real sense is expected to truly reach a kind of the least really worth of 172 in 2031. Which truly is very huge. The row's expense could generally show up at a generally outrageous truly worth of 194, with a common trading cost of 188. All through 2031 row's value figure February 2031. In February 2031, the expense of Desert Spring Organization is gauged to basically be at around a base extremely worth of 185 or so, they thought. The Desert Garden Organization esteem worth can sort of show up at a restriction of 203, with the common trading pretty worth of 100.